people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
The undisputed super featherweight champion of the world, Alicia, the Bumgarner.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest from two-division champion Devin Haney ahead of his upcoming fight with Ryan Garcia. He says, if Subriel Matias wants to fight me and Eddie Hearn work together, that fight can be made. If Teofimo wants it, I'm at Top Rank's gym right now. We can make that fight too. I'm everywhere. It doesn't matter. I want to make the biggest fights happen with the best fighters in the world because I truly believe I'm the best. I'm not on Twitter just saying this. I'm for real. And that's what Devin Haney's track record ultimately shows. That if getting to George Kambosos meant he would have to go to Australia, not once, but twice, he was willing to do it. He climbed in the ring with the Vasyl Lomachenko that Gervonta Davis has avoided for years. Devin actually fought him. And whether or not you think he won isn't what's important. It's that he did what Gervonta wouldn't do. Didn't do. Even though Vasyl Lomachenko was along Gervonta Davis's homework long before Devin Haney came into it. But Devin did it. Devin fought him, moved up in weight, fought a champion.
A real champion.
Not a secondary title holder like Mario Barrios. He fought two-time super lightweight champion Regis Prograis, thoroughly outclassing him.
No weight stipulations necessary.
Like the ones Gervonta used on Ryan Garcia and Mario Barrios, Devin Haney really is the war machine. So when he says he wants to unify this division, I believe him.
Look at who he's fought.
And if nothing else, look at the lay of the land. Look at the landscape between 140 and 147. At 147, there's not much reason for Devin to move up from 140 up to 147 because there are no high-profile fights at 147. There's more money to be made. Better money at 140 than 147.
So I believe Devin will stay there and he will pursue unification matches.
Do you believe he's going to pursue Subriel Matias?
Well, not before he pursues Teofimo Lopez.
Myself, I'm not too hung up on the order that these fights happen in because they really are all great fights. A Lopez fight, a Matias fight. However,
I do think he'll pursue Teofimo next. If the fight with Ryan goes through, nothing happens, and Devin wins, the way we're all expecting him to, I believe he'll cross back over to the Top Rank side of things, pursue that fight with Teofimo.
And that's important because these fights that he's already had and these fights that he could be having, not just in a legacy sense, but also a business sense, these are high-profile fights. The virtue of fighting Ryan Garcia, irrespective of what you think of him, is the profile of the match. That his boxing acumen may be limited, but he's still a very popular fighter with a profile and a lot of social media presence. You think about the potential pay-per-view buys for that fight, then the potential pay-per-view buys for a Teofimo Lopez fight afterwards. This creates an environment, a situation to where Devin Haney may become the biggest money fight for Gervonta Davis.
He's supposed to be fighting Frank Martin in his next fight. What's that gonna sell?
We know that His Excellency, Turki Al-Sheikh, was interested in opening up a dialogue for Gervonta Davis to fight Devin Haney. This is what he chose.
Frank Martin.
Because he still has a choice, but after a while, he might not. And if he takes care of Frank in his next fight, he has the option of going back to 140 and fighting Isaac Cruz, who became WBA champion this past weekend.
He has that option.
So think about that sequence of fights. For Gervonta Davis, it could turn out to where he fights Frank, beats him, then fights Isaac. Devin fights Ryan, beats him, then fights Teofimo.
All at 140.
Because Gervonta Davis is putting distance between himself and Devin, that's allowing Devin the time he needs to amass his profile, increase his marquee value,
and his skills.
Further acclimating to this weight, 140 pounds. It creates an environment to where after a while, the biggest money fight, really the only fight that might be left for Gervonta Davis that'll get him a big purse, It might be the Devin Haney fight. And you guys already know that stylistically, I already favor Devin to beat Gervonta Davis.
The longer that fight takes to make, the more I favor Devin.
Devin, who I like to think of as the war machine. He's willing to fight in these fights. He's willing to fight these fighters. He's proven that.
Subriel?
Well, listen, stylistically here and now, I would favor Subriel to beat Devin, but that's here and now. That could change over time. And being honest, I would not begrudge Devin Haney putting a Teofimo Lopez fight ahead of a Matias fight or putting a Gervonta Davis fight ahead of a Matias fight. I wouldn't begrudge him for that.
I like all those fights.
Just saying that so long as Devin Haney wins the Ryan Garcia fight, potentially wins the Teofimo Lopez fight, he will create an environment where Gervonta may not have a choice. If he wants a big bag, he may have to fight him. And super lightweight news, the fallout from the Rolly Romero versus Isaac Cruz fight, boxing insider Rick Glacier said, "How's that a brilliant decision for Rolly Romero," one he made, foregoing a huge money fight with Ryan Garcia in April, and instead he fought Pitbull Cruz last night for a fraction of the money and got knocked the fuck out.
That's what I said would happen.
What is a noticeable pattern among PBC fighters, the content creator T Street Controversy highlighted, saying, "How many more fighters over there are going to turn down big money from other promoters and broadcasters to stay at the PBC for what is usually less, quote-unquote, betting on themselves, and then end up losing or being shelved, like Peter Quillen, Adrian Broner, Danny Garcia, Luis Ortiz, Deontay Wilder, Adam Kopnowski, Andy Ruiz, Frank Martin, and now Rolly Romero."
Basically.
It's not exactly a secret that a fighter makes more money from headlining a show than being in the co-main event, thus making the decision to have Rolly forego the Ryan Garcia fight for this one, a decision that couldn't have been made with his best interests in mind, rather the platform and the promotion. They needed familiar faces and familiar fighters to populate the card with, even if it meant costing Rolly money.
A lot of money.
Given the limited window that fighters already have to make life-altering money, let alone a fighter as limited as Rolly Romero, what business sense did it make? Because you always hear these guys say that boxing is a business.
Well, that didn't make business sense for Rolly.
Could have and would have lost either of those fights, but he would have made substantially more money as a defending champion in a main event than a defending champion in a co-main event. So if it made business sense for somebody, it wasn't Rolly. Maybe it meant business sense for the PBC.
You think?
Veteran boxing scribe Steve Kim said, a judge, Chris Flores, actually had Rolly Romero up on the cards versus Pitbull. I'm not even sure he won a single round. And there was a possible 10-8 round in the first round, and a point deduction for Romero. Okay, we need to monitor this Flores from here on out.
Yeah, well, strange things happen on the scorecards whenever Rolly fights.
What is the booby prize in all of this? Even though they costed Rolly a lot of money for what could have been a Ryan Garcia fight, they did try to rig the cards for him, at least one.
According to Steve Kim.
So I'm told that the referee in the long count in the Navarrete versus Wilson fight last year was that same Chris Flores, who had Romero up on the cards this weekend versus Isaac Cruz. Good grief. This guy is either incompetent or... Anyway, I've got to go.
We know what the implications are.
A gift decision against Elvis Rodriguez. A gift stoppage against Ishmael Barroso.
And it looks like they were trying to rig the game for him in this fight.
How could any competent judge, even if it was just one out of the three, have had Rolly Romero up on the cards for having done what?
I don't know.
In case you guys forgot, the 4 points you use to score a round in the sport of boxing are effective aggression, ring generalship, defense, and landing clean, hard punches, all of which Isaac Cruz was doing from the very beginning. I myself didn't see a round I could have given to Rolly Romero, let alone enough rounds that he might have been up on the cards.
Ridiculous.
Effective aggression goes hand in hand with clean punching, because if the aggression is effective, you will land clean punches. That's what Isaac was doing from the very beginning. He almost knocked him out at the start.
Defense, you can't give Rolly Romero defense if Isaac Cruz is landing punches on him.
Can't be winning the rounds based on effective aggression or clean hard punches or defense, as he's the one getting punched, and you can't give him ring generalship unless he's trying to get hit.
Ring generalship is just a blanket term for the fighter who's fighting their fight.
It's just a blanket term for the guy who's in control of the action and in control of the fight. And unless it was Rolly Romero's intention to get knocked lopsided around the ring, round after round, unless that's what he wanted to do, I don't think you can give give him ring generalship. Further indication that the PBC is a clown show.
A perversion onto the sport of boxing, Al Heyman's perverse vision of the sport.
It's a psyop is what it is, because these guys were actually trying to sell you Rolly Romero as a fighter, as a champion. But look at it.
Where does he go from here?
Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
That's why I don't pity him. He could have parlayed that gift stoppage over Ishmael Barroso into a massive payday with Ryan Garcia, but he chose to play along with all of this.
He was actually gloating about it, downing DAZN as a platform and saying that he was on the verge of becoming an Amazon superstar.
Do you remember that a few weeks ago? Do you remember? That's what he was saying. So when it all blows up in his fucking face, I'm not going to play him the violin for all the money that he could have made. I'm just saying these guys are not as business savvy as they would have you believe.
Because what fucking business sense did that make?
See, the PBC and their acolytes justify all manner of aberrations against the sport behind the cliche that boxing is a business. But what business sense did that make?
Their chicanery, their cowardice.
All justified by the cliche that boxing is a business. It's a business.
Whatever.
This side of the street or the other one. Rolly Romero has once again been exposed because all the chicanery in the world won't make him a skilled boxer.
It's the beauty of boxing.
Even under these circumstances, the truth will eventually come out because it always does.
They can pay one of the judges to rig the cards for you. That may not be enough to stop from getting knocked the fuck out.
And that's all Rolly did this weekend. Just in keeping with the theme of all this past weekend's action, post-fight, Tszyu took to his social media and said, "Congratulations to Sebastian Fundora, a well-earned victory, never backed out of any challenge, and trying to inspire the next generation to fight through all adversities that are presented. I'll be back for all the belts. The goal remains the same. Warrior shit only."
Yeah, that sounds good. In reality, they're gonna put you on the back burner for Spence.
What's really come out of this partnership with the PBC for Tszyu? He never actually got the Charlo fight, and the Charlo fight was what started all of this. That's what he was after.
But he never got it.
He never actually got to fight for Undisputed, and from the very beginning, when they had him fighting in Minneapolis at the fucking Armory.
Against Terrell Gausha, the kind of opponent you could have flown out to you. You should have.
You're gonna fly halfway around the world to fight Terrell Gausha.
Really?
That'd be like flying Virgil Ortiz out to the UK to fight at the Copper Box against Sam Eggington. I've always believed in Tszyu's boxing ability, and in spite of this past weekend's action, I still do. I do think he can come back from this, but I never trusted the PBC.
And I still don't.
The whole thing stinks. First it was supposed to be Erickson Lubin, then it became Keith Thurman, then after that it's Sebastian Fundora.
I'm not the only one who thinks it looks fishy.
Former champion Ishe Smith stated, "All I'm saying is the shit seems weird. Fundora is a matchup problem for anyone. A southpaw, height that's out of this world, but he's more of a problem for someone taking a fight on short notice. First Thurman pulls out, then Spence is in the ring. Allegedly Dallas is already booked."
It's all set up real nice, isn't it?
Ishe continued, "There's no justification for getting beat down like that in your last fight and being thrusted right into a unification fight at a higher weight. Makes zero fucking sense. Won't be for the WBO. The BC shouldn't sanction it."
Boxing scribe Robert Littall said Tszyu isn't pleased how his corner handled the cut on his head, to which Ishe replied, "Everyone was in on it."
What's he trying to say?
Sounds like he's trying to say his own people set him up.
From his management to the cut man. That seems to be the implication when you think about it. How could Tszyu agree to this? Agree to a late replacement that's the exact opposite of what he's been preparing for weeks without a rematch clause in play. I mean, you've been getting ready for a fighter who's a shorter guy than you are, an older guy than you are that's gonna move around. That's what you've been getting ready for. An orthodox fighter. And instead you end up with a southpaw who's taller than you are, longer than you are,
And your own people don't think to put a rematch clause into the contract. You cut, man.
I've been getting all kinds of messages and just finished doing an interview regarding the cut on Tszyu. Unfortunately, that big vein that we have right there, if you pop it, you're not going to stop it. And he got the cut, it's the same vein. But it's important to have a good corner with you because they should have stopped it before the start of the 5th round. It would have been a no contest. They would have had a chance for a rematch and then protect him. I felt sorry for him. I felt bad that all the techniques that were being used on him were not the proper techniques on how to handle a cut. So, I wish Tim Tszyu the best.
The value's better on
in
Spence.
the end of the day, is maximize the profit for the fighter. And it'd be stupidity for me not to do that for them.
So safer for Spence.
And besides that, boxing is business. As Mayweather, as everyone.
So would you say, not saying Spence is easy, but maybe more money, maybe get some ready for the Crawford fight, maybe in preparation?
I believe that this one of the point that, Spence is a really good fighter anyway, especially in 54. So I believe that he will have the shot, but now you need to wait like it make to weigh others. That is the boxing world. It's not only one way, it's two ways.
It's what Sebastian Fundora's longtime promoter, Samson Lukowicz, had to say about it. Sounds a lot like he doesn't have a Tim Tszyu rematch on his mind or a mandated Terrence Crawford fight by way of the WBO.
He wants his fighter to fight Errol Spence Jr.
Errol Spence Jr. himself said, "We're going back to Dallas." It's almost like Errol was tipped off as to what might happen.
Come on with the conspiracies. It's the cut that costed Tim Tszyu to fight. He couldn't see.
Maybe it was, but it does feel like there were a lot of pieces on the board that Tim wasn't aware of, that there were pieces on the board in play.
More than he realized.
You're training for an orthodox fighter, they swap him out for a southpaw. You're training for an older, shorter fighter in his mid-30s to fight the biggest fighter, quite literally, the biggest fighter at the weight.
All circumstantial, huh?
You can forget about Sebastian Fundora giving Tim Tszyu a rematch. You can also forget about him facing Terrence Crawford, his mandatory challenger by way of the WBO. Terrence, who tagged Errol Spence, saying, "Sorry, buddy, you've got to wait in line, sir," to which Errol replied, "I don't know, champ. I don't do lines."
There's a lot to be said about that exchange, and it will be said in another video.
The focus here is Tim Tszyu and how this relationship with the PBC hasn't really proved to be a fruitful one in any capacity. My honest opinion is Tim Tszyu was too willing and too eager to jump into bed with these people. Likely starstruck to be doing business with the Americans, with the same promotional outfit that promotes Errol Spence and Deontay Wilder, Gervonta Davis, not realizing they'll backdoor him if they can. And I believe they've been trying to.
The whole time.
Since the Terrell Gausha fight at the fucking Armory in Minneapolis, Tim Tszyu could have fought in front of a bigger crowd in his own hometown, in his own home country. You don't fly halfway across the world for a Terrell Gausha fight.
You jumped into bed with these people pursuing a Charlo fight, and in the end, you never got it. You never got to fight for Undisputed.
They put you on the back burner to put that same Charlo in the ring with Canelo.
Because they don't care about you.
They never did. The other fights that Tim Tszyu had, the Carlos Ocampo fight, the Tony Harrison fight, the Brian Mendoza fight, No Limit Promotions made those fights happen, and you were already in bed with them before you got with the PBC. So what did you really get out of that partnership?
A late replacement 2 weeks out from the fight and a sharp elbow on the head.
That's what he got.